So we'll end on a positive for Leeds.
Yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to seeing James Seguiaro playing in Super League next season. Can't wait. I'm not saying he's the answer, but he's certainly an improvement on what they've been playing at Hooker recently, and he gives them real attacking going forward, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So, yeah, phenomenal player. And thank you once more to Bob, Dom and Rich for their contributions, not just this week, but all year as well. Let's talk about the Salford Red Devils, Mark, because it seemed like the whole world was against them at one time or another, and they remain a Super League team, perhaps perhaps against all odds. Third in the qualifiers is where you had them. I had them winning the qualifiers. The way they remain in Super League and where they actually finished up is, the stuff of legend, really, isn't it? Last kick of the game. Drop goal winners from about 48 metres out. Overhaul KR.
We're going to hear from Rob Parkinson in a minute. They called the Devil in the Detail, Salford Red Devils fan podcast. They called their final podcast of the year the £1 Million Miracle.
Well, yeah, and it certainly was. In the Cup, you had them in the 6th round, as did I, and they went out in the 6th round, so we got one right there, and they stayed up literally by the skin of their teeth. Probably fair, I would say, on balance, given the fact that they were punished for actions earlier, but I'm sure that the lads at the Devil in the Details will be able to give us a bit more detail.
Hello, I'm Rob Paxman from Devil in the Detail, Salford Red Devils independent fan podcast, and I'm here to talk you through Salford Red Devils 2016 Super League season. The two highlights for me was beating St Helens at home 44-10. A really good performance from the Salford Red Devils that day, putting the St Helens to the sword with some outstanding rugby league, and it was a great watch for the Salford faithful. Also beating Leeds Rhinos at home, the first time we'd done that since 1993, and it was a special moment for everyone. We've had some really close battles with teams this season. The Warrington at home, the Sandow drop goal in the dying seconds of the game, that was a crucial moment and very exciting game, which unfortunately we didn't get on the right side of. Also games Huddersfield at home and Wigan at home and Wigan away. All games like that, where if we got a look at the bounce and we had, at least won 2 of them 4 games, it would have changed the scene and the look of our season, playoffs and the qualifiers. The RFL decided to take 6 points off us as Marwan. They thought Marwan had cheated the salary cap a few years ago. It was a big point in our season. We were going very well at that point, but unfortunately, the points and the pressure told on the players, I thought, as the season went on. But it's one of the things. Hopefully, Marwan will learn from this, and it won't be happening again. There was also the incident in Huddersfield where there was a bit of a crowd incident, and it was a shame, but. The fans reacted brilliantly to it and raised money for the players and the families. And, it was a really good touch that obviously, in, moments like the dark moments like the fans of Salford Devils come together and make a positive thing out of a bad incident. So with a points deduction, we were condemned to the Super 8 qualifiers and, it's a tough competition with the likes of Lee involved in London, and Sol fans were a little bit concerned, but I thought we had a quality of players in the squad to make a massive effort and hopefully regain our Super League place for 2017. We started well with a win at home to Huddersfield, and then we went to Lee and got beat. We kind of ran out of time in that game. The effort was there, but the clock beat us in the end. And then obviously defeat against Hull KR. The killer was getting beat against London at home. Total non-performance from the players and put the pressure on everyone that looking at where the league table stood. It was out of our hands at that point. So we won the games that we needed to win, which took us to Hull KR for the £1 million game, and what a game it was for all Sol fans who was there. It was a moment that I think will change the club forever. That Greg Johnson try in the dying seconds of the game, the £1 million miracle. That's what the Salford Red Devils fans have dubbed it. An unbelievable moment for all concerned. I think it was a best finish, to any rugby league game that you can ever imagine, from teetering on the edge, from the abyss to ultimate ecstasy in 1 minute 52 was unbelievable, and to put the cherry on the cake, the Gaz O'Brien drop goal from 50 metres out of the blue was unbelievable. The unbelievable scenes from the crowd on the field enjoying the moment, and obviously there was a minor crowd disturbances, but it was only a couple of fans in there. I think it was blown out of all proportions, and I really do think that the rugby league community should have been celebrating the fact that the £1 million game had produced a wonderful moment, which rugby league should be celebrating rather than looking at the negatives. So that's our look back at the Salford Red Devils season in 2016. We've had some great performances. The likes of Craig Kopczak have put in a fantastic effort. George Griffin, there's been some really good, performances from everyone. Too many to mention, to be fair. And hopefully, in 2017, we can build on that, bring a few new faces in, and compete for that top 8 spot.
Well,
thorough stuff.
Absolutely, and Rob's particularly well placed to cast an eye over Salford's season, being a fellow podcaster and being as staunch a Red Devils fan as he is. What do you think, Mark? What do you draw from their season this year?
Well, I think he's already said a lot of the things I'd written down in my notes, to be honest. But neither of us expected Salford to make the top 8, but they had a rougher ride over the season than either of us expected, didn't they? Probably the most predictable thing that happened was Kukash getting caught out for cheating the salary cap, but at least that set us up for one almighty finish, that £1 million miracle with that Gareth O'Brien drop goal after that Josh Griffin run and that Mark Flanagan pass.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Those moments that get Rob so excited still, even a few weeks removed.
Yeah.
Salford were actually able to get their first choice players out about 3/4 of the time in the regular season. Injuries were maybe more of an issue in the qualifiers and in the Million game itself than they were across the regular season at large. That probably helped them to what would have been an 8th place finish had Dr. Kukash's dirty laundry not come out to be cleaned. They were actually one of the best attacking sides, 3rd best in tries per game, strike rate in Super League, tempered by the 3rd worst goal-kicking success rate, so the points per game wasn't as high as the tries per game. They made the fewest errors per game in 2016 of any Super League side and land mid-table in most of the key stats. So where they should have ended up without the points deduction is about right, I think. On the regular season alone, you would not have seen them being the away side in the £1 million game when you follow that form through. But it's the kind of intrigue and drama that this league system sets up. Individually, Junior Stout, Gareth O'Brien, they were the attacking standouts. I think Mason Caton-Brown in his handful of appearances and Josh Griffin, they had an opportunity to show what their new employers, Wakefield and Hull FC respectively, what they'll do in 2017. I was most impressed though, and Rob touched on these players, Craig Kopczak and George Griffin. They held together a relatively weak front row. They were both making over... I must have written these. Oh, sorry. They made over 8 tackles and 3 carries per game more than the next prop behind them. So they did a lot more work than the other players in the. And then the next player behind them was Adam Wallen. After his stats, the drop-off was even bigger. Both made good meters, chipping in with a few scores each as well, around the 95% tackle success mark and putting them in the top 5 at the club in tackle success. The obvious high point, crowd trouble aside, was the second to last game of the season. So the second last game of the season, the £1 million game before the grand final. Salford had already been involved in 2 entertaining drop goal deciding games in the regular season. The one touched on there with Warrington and Huddersfield as well away. The other £1 million game, other than the £1 million game, Salford fans will have a fond memory of the round 2 hammering of St Helens 44-10, which Rob also covered off.
Yes.
So there you go. You've stolen my notes.
Yeah, no, there you go. I'd say that them staying up on balance is probably fair. Look, their punishments came about for the behaviours of their coach 2 or 3 years ago, and the argument was, well, why would you punish this group of players? Well, that's all been done and dealt with now. That group and the fans aren't. They've had their punishment and they've played in the middle eights and they've survived, and that's kind of even for me. If they'd gone down, then perhaps that would have been a shade too much, given the fact that a decent period of time has passed, and it wouldn't have just been punitive for Marlon Kukash, it would have been punitive for the whole group, and that's kind of where I would have felt some unfairness. No interest in whether or not it would have been good or bad for Marlon Kukash, but actually Salford fans and that collection of players I would have felt some level of injustice for. And of course,
he's almost like
the staff,
the people's champion out of a club that people love to hate the hierarchy a little bit.
Yeah.
Watson doesn't have any of that on him, and is everyone likes him, don't they?
Well, that's it. Yeah, he's definitely popular there, isn't he? So we'll see what they do next season. I imagine there'll be a fairly high turnover of players. It's sort of started already, hasn't it? So we'll see what they're able to assemble and go again in 2017. St Helens, though, Mark. Moving on alphabetically now. You nailed one with this one. You had them finishing fourth, and that's where they duly obliged. I had them finishing slightly lower down, and but for a sudden uptick in their form towards the back end of the season, I think I might have been closer than you. I had them finishing seventh. Our cup predictions, you had them as runners-up, I had them as quarter-finalists that went out in the first round. I was trying to write some notes and put some thoughts together on this one for St Helens. All I could think it was meh. It's one of the most average... When you look at some of the St Helens teams that there have been in the past and how entertaining they've been and how exciting they've been to watch, this is a very, very average St Helens team having an average season, and them just about getting their shit together for long enough to get to the semi-finals and kind of just do enough to perhaps legitimise KFC's continued employment there. Positives for me were... Kyle Amore's season. Kyle Amore remains an absolute monster for me. I think the guy's a freak. Johnny Lomax's comeback from injury was just a heartwarming sporting story, and of course I always enjoy watching Mark Percival. But like I say, I didn't see anything from Saints this year that I found particularly enjoyable.
Do you want me to read out what I've written in my notes as the first line?
Is it a version of that?
They were what I expected them to be. Relatively dull, dogged, and led by as good a front row as there is in the league. They did have some competition from Warrington and Hull for the high calibre of the front row. But my recap of the season for them starts with that front three. You mentioned Amore, so I'd talk also about Walmsley. So Amore and Walmsley, they each played in all 31 of St Helens' Super League games, and with ball in hand, they were devastating, making 123 metres per game each, at 7.9 and 7.4 per carry respectively. Amore scored 6 and made 5 tries for teammates, both highs for props this year in Super League.
Right.
Walmsley made 76 tackle busts, the most by any prop. Roby wasn't at his creative best this year, but still ranked amongst the top 10 hookers for tries and assists. Defensively, he made the 3rd most tackles in the league, and he did this at the 5th best tackle success rate with players who played 10 or more games. He also topped all hookers with his 97% tackle success. He had more carries than any other hooker, was second in that position at making metres and at metres per carry, 3rd in clean breaks made. Clark and Houghton may have been taking all the plaudits, but Roby was still up there with them for me in 2016.
Yeah, no, you can't argue with that.
The reason Saints were contenders towards the back end of the year, though, was because of the 2 exciting backs that you mentioned finally getting some game time at long last, Lomax and Percival. They're difference makers, like you say.
Yeah. Along with Adam Swift, who had a good season.
Yeah, true, the cartoon dog we do love. Soft spot there. They basically scored an extra try per game from Lomax being in the side, winning 26% more time of the time by a 10-point margin difference compared to when he was missing. So they won 26% more of the time, and the difference between scores was 10 points better off when he played. Similarly with Percival, there was a 7-point swing around, so there was 7 points better off in games, and they had a 30% better win rate with him than the win rate without him. 2 main reasons for me why they weren't more than just contenders, really, why they weren't better than 4th. In the middle of the year, they had a run of 9 games where they conceded more than 20 points in each game, losing 5 of those 9. Then, in the Super 8, despite winning 6 from 7, they had a spell of averaging over 15 errors a game, which meant their attack had no fluidity to break down the top draw defences that they had to face in the final weeks. So that caught up with them when they got to a semi-final, really. I'll finish my part of this on a couple of unsung heroes for Saints. Joe Greenwood and Luke Thompson. Greenwood got on our dream team ballot for the second row, but only earned 1 vote. He was second amongst back rowers for tries scored, and also 3rd for tackle success rate. So he did it both ways. Yeah, mate. Saints conceded 10 points a game less in his 22 games played compared to the 9 when he missed them. Thompson, he played in 23 games and missed 8. Again, Saints were 10 points better off when he was in the lineup compared to when he wasn't. Amore and Walmsley did much of the heavy lifting, but Thompson still chalked up over 80 metres a game, over 7 metres per carry, and had a better tackle success rate than all the other front rowers in the Saints side. So those 2 deserve credit, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anyone I missed? Adam Swift, I suppose. I didn't give you any numbers for him.
Yeah, but had a good season. He's rapid.
And he scored more than 3 tries on more than one occasion, didn't he? He scored 4 twice, didn't he? We talked about last week.
That's right, yeah. Feed the dog and he will score. Moving on from St Helens, then let's talk about Wakefield's season. A season of not overachievement, but considering where they've come from and where they finished the year, it was definitely an uptick. I had them getting relegated. You had